Hey everyone, this is Shari Alexander again, and I have another special guest for you today. Ramdas has been in the field of human behavior for a number of years and is actually a hypnotherapist. So if at some point you start clucking like a chicken during this interview, it's totally his fault. But he actually uses his hypnotherapy for powers of good, of course, rather than for carnival tricks. He actually focuses on helping people going from stuck to unstuck. And how he does that is through the power of his words, walking you through the process, talking with you about things. And since we're in the field of communications, all of this is really important to what we talk about. And he also has a book that we're going to talk about today. But first, let me welcome Ramdas. How are you, UJ?
I'm good. Thanks for having me on the show, Shari.
Absolutely. So how are things in Toronto right now, up in Canada?
Well, things are great. It's actually nice and sunny here. For the last couple of days, it's been really hot.
Oh, really?
I know you're going to be in Toronto quite soon.
Yes.
So I might get to see some of that.
Yes. I like the sunshine. I shall bring the California sunshine with me to Toronto. So one thing that I met UJ actually in Toronto at an event called the Mastermind Talks, and you and I just absolutely hit it off in a lot of ways because we are both language nerds. Am I right?
Behavior geeks. Yeah.
Yes, behavior geeks and influence junkies. Like we read the same books, we know all the same authors, and so tell me how you got interested in this world of human behavior.
Well, for as long as I can remember, I've been like reading books and consuming content about that. So I think I was probably about 10 or 11 when my best friend at the time, he introduced me to this book, The Beginner's Guide to Hypnosis, and it was I still remember the author. It was a blue book. It had like those hypnotic eyes on the cover, and
Classic.
It was actually, in retrospect, like it was a shitty book by like Bill Hewitt, and I still own the book. I still have it here somewhere, and I just bought it again for just the value of the first book that introduced me into the world of human behavior. And I read it, and as kids, our minds are open, and I'm really willing to try pretty much anything to see whether something works or not. And I remember recording myself a tape and playing it over to me myself, and I did a few cool things in a hypnotic state. And I figured this is super cool. And at that point, you're 10, 11-ish, and you just think you discovered a superpower. It's a really cool feeling. And the first thing you think about is, I can use this to cheat in school.
Of course.
And it's naturally used for accelerated learning and memory enhancement. So it's used that way, but that was my initial application, and it was pretty effective. And no one at the time knew what I was doing. A lot of people around were really scared of it, and a lot of people thought it didn't work. And to me, it's really funny how people think something doesn't work and are scared of it. That doesn't make sense to me, right? And I've always been a massive fan of observation, just observing the tiny nuances in people, because the fact is, people are afraid of this thing called hypnosis. We're all in a trance every day. So if anyone watches TV and they're watching TV and they're holding the remote in a certain way, and they go somewhere and they can't really remember what they were watching, it's a trance. Right? You're in a car, you get from point A to point B, you get to point B, and you look around and you wonder who drove. That's a trance. And we're all in these trances every day, right before you go to sleep. That place where you're not sure you're asleep or awake, but you're somewhere in between. That's a trance. And so we're all in these trances all the time. And chances are, a lot of the time, when you're having a really deep conversation, you're also in trance.
Interesting. So when we're in those, and there's different levels of trance, I assume.
Absolutely.
Right. So when we're in certain states, then we become more
Suggestible, so to speak.
Yeah.
Yeah, suggestible, so to speak. And so some of the greatest influencers, the masterful communicators that you talk about, naturally have that ability to connect with someone and bring them into that state.
Right.
Some people call it mojo, chemistry,
Charisma. Right.
People have called it the reality distortion field. People like Bill Gates. Sorry, it's Bill Clinton.
There you go. I was like...
yeah, not Gates, but Clinton is known. Steve Jobs is known for it.
Right.
Where they shake your hand and you feel like you're transported to a different place and you just feel totally connected. That's what's really going on.
Right.
And some people develop that ability, and some people have some of it and develop some of it. So it's a natural way to communicate, which is extremely effective.
Right. So when one of your clients goes to you and they say, I've got a problem, like I want to quit smoking or something like that, and that's, so you put them through the hypnotic process?
Yeah. So what happens is, firstly, that's a lot of the mainstream, what people think they're going to hypnosis for. I get all kinds of interesting cases. I call them boutique cases, and that's the ones I enjoy a lot. Ones that people go, you know what, I have this problem, and it's very unique, and I have a fear of blushing.
Okay.
And I blush a lot, and once I start blushing, it just doesn't stop.
Right.
I'm really nervous and really anxious, and that's my unique problem.
Right.
For some people, they can't be in a locked room. You know, everything else is fine, but they can't be in a locked room.
Right.
And for some reason, they just start freaking out in a locked room. And there's ways to get them out of that. I had a client where he had a phobia of writing in front of people. So for 20-something years, since he was a kid, he hadn't been able to write in front of people, and it stopped him from so many things, from career goals, from being able to get confidence in himself, because something as simple as this stopped him from expressing himself. And it can be a huge problem. And in all those three cases, I helped them from within a few weeks, typically, get from where they were to free of that problem.
Now here's well, I was just thinking, because I actually had a client who she had that blushing problem, and anytime she felt any sort of anxiety of any sort, it would crawl all the way up to her neck. And in fact, she told me that on her wedding day, she had to wear full sleeves of her wedding dress and a turtleneck part of her wedding dress, because otherwise she just would have looked like, a raspberry up on the altar. And so that I never would have thought of hypnotherapy to be a method to fix that. And what I find this is where I geek out, is here's all these physical behavioral problems, and really and truly all you're doing is using words, and language is the key to navigate through these issues. And I find that just like awe-inspiring. Do you kind of every day go, this is just so freaking cool?
I'm glad you get it.
Well,
a lot of people don't.
I totally get it. Well, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, zooming out a little bit, if you want to get a little philosophical, your language really creates a reality.
Yes.
And if we don't have language, we don't have reality. Dan Sullivan, who is a coach for some of the most successful entrepreneurs, says, you name something, you create something.
Right.
And so I like to name a lot of things. Just, you name something, you own it in a certain way.
Right.
And you really kind of bring it into existence.
Yes.
And some of the change work I do, it's in deep trances. Some of the change work I do in conversation. Just by changing a certain mental model. So a lot of the time people have an internal reality and an external reality. So I'll give you an example of this. So I talk about sitting on a chair, and Bob sat on a chair, was talking to Gina, and Gina was in the kitchen. Now, your mind has to create a mental picture of that.
Yeah.
And you have a picture of what that chair looks like.
Right. Yes.
Right? Now, your internal mental picture of the chair could be very different from my internal picture of the chair.
Right.
Say my internal picture of the chair was like a lazy boy.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
No, mine's like
Is
a
it,
1950s
yeah.
steel legs with the orange cushion. Yeah, I have no
Okay.
idea why, but that's what was there.
That's okay. And so, if you change your association to that chair, you change how you relate to that story,
Totally.
right? And in a certain way, when something is a little bit more charged with emotion, fear, or anger, or grief, and you change those symbols you have in your mind, it can make a profound impact
Yes.
to how things happen. So that client you had who had who had to wear for the wedding, she had to wear a turtleneck, dress up to here. In her mind, she's interpreting reality in a very different way than it's actually happening.
Mm-hmm.
So you can sequence that a different way.
Mm.
Her problem stops.
That's amazing.
Right? That's
So
very cool.
what we've talked about so far is the process of you being the coach, the facilitator for somebody else to walk through their process.
Mm-hmm.
But you have actually transformed parts of this process of positive psychology for your awesome book.
Thank you.
So for those who can see this, this is the 5-minute journal. And instead of perhaps UJ walking you through a process, you can actually go through this exploratory process by yourself using a lot of the tenets that he and his co-author have put in this book. So before I delve into the aspects of the book that I absolutely use and absolutely love and absolutely recommend, I'm curious as to what the genesis story is of where the 5-minute journal came from.
That's great. Thanks for the kind words. I really appreciate it.
Of course.
And so Alex is a good friend of mine, and we've been friends for years. And once on a nice summer day, not very different from the days we're having right now, we just decided to take a walk because it had been a long week, and we wanted to catch up. And so we just decided to take a walk in the park. And we were discussing everything from morning routines to night routines. And he was fascinated with something I do every night. And I've been doing the 5-minute journal for almost 5-6 years now.
Mm-hmm.
I just done it by myself, and I wrote the questions out by hand every day.
Mm-hmm.
And so we were talking about business and marketing and how to respond to haters, all this stuff. And he said, "Listen, I really want to know about your night routine because we already had morning routines established."
Mm-hmm.
And not a lot of people talk about the night routines. In the entrepreneurial circles, we talk quite a bit about getting your day started out right, not checking email,
right,
Facebook, blah blah blah,
right,
but not as much how to close the day. And so what I used to do it was actually a little bit more intense than than the book. I used to write down all of the things I did during the day that moved me forward towards my goals. And I had like a gamification system. So I used to give myself points for everything that moved me towards my goal.
Oh, wow.
And Tony Robbins has this thing where he goes, list 10 things that happened well in the day. It's like the magic moments. So I used to write 10 things, and I used to write a few affirmations. And that was my nightly thing. It used to take me about 10-15 minutes. And he said, "This is amazing, but I do not have the patience to write the questions out by hand every day. How about we just make a book?"
I love it.
And I didn't buy it at first. I didn't buy it at all. I said, "That's lazy. How lazy are you? Just write the questions out. Are you kidding me? It's not complex." And he said, "No, I want it beautifully made. I want it like to own it. I want to make it. I just want to be able to create something. I think there's a market for this. I'm a firm believer that is one customer, there's more.
Right.
That's the first customer, and then we shook hands right there.
Yeah.
And that's when it started.
You accomplished your goal because even though you probably can't tell us through the screen, one of the things I love about this book is it is beautifully made. I was in publishing for a number of years. I know the process of putting together a book, and I'm very picky about book quality. And you guys have this fantastic hardcover, fabric hardcover book. And the reason why I'm talking about this, it may seem a little weird, but the reason I talk about it is it kind of makes it this cozy feeling that I'm going to write in my journal rather than just a notebook or a notepad where it's, legal paper and you're writing down something. This is like your special moment, sit down. Moment. Yeah, exactly.
You kept it so well. Your journal is like pristine. It's great.
Well,
mine is like this is soiled. I'll show you. It's, it's like soiled.
No, so I actually got two. This one I have not used yet. I'm still on my first one. And this one you cannot tell, but there is a coffee stain on it. Yeah. So trust me, it is well used.
Okay, good.
So to share what the 5-minute journal is, for those people who, I go through ebbs and flows of how often I journal. Like I'll be great about it for a period of time, and then I'll forget about it. And so part of what I think makes journaling difficult sometimes is it feels like, oh, it's that next project that I have to do. It's not just something quick and easy that I can just check off the list. It's like, no, I have to really sit and contemplate and write. And then I always feel like, but if 100 years this is found in the dirt by an archaeologist, I want to make sure it's well written rather than just trash. And, this is my head. But what you have done is taken the journal process and condensed it down to something you can do in 5 minutes, sometimes less, a day. So just a little bit of the breakdown of what's in here is there's an inspirational quote at the top. Fantastic. And then you have your morning routine, and as UJ was talking about, the nighttime routine, because we don't think about closing out the day. In fact, I just interviewed Dan DePani not too long ago, and he talks about finishing things, closing things out. And this is a fantastic way to close out that day. So your morning routine is 3 things I'm grateful for, what would make my day today great, and daily affirmations. So I want to understand the logic behind each of these. Let's start with the gratitude. Why do you start with gratitude?
So I'll zoom out a bit and answer that question in about a couple of minutes. So one of the things that was really important to me was to create the most impact in the least amount of time. I'm an efficiency freak, and I wanted to, Alex and I really wanted to blow out any excuses that people might have to not do it. Because it takes 5 minutes, and if you can just front load everything that is effective about it, and you give them a system by which it's impossible to fail. So in the first few pages you've seen, we've done something to ensure they stick to it, a 5-day commitment.
Right.
With real stakes and real, stakes if they don't really follow through, and rewards if they do.
Right.
Because it's a logging behavior. So in a logging behavior, if you do it 5 times, typically it works out that you're going to stick to the habit.
Right.
And wherever you go, you'll take the journal. So if I'm, crashing somewhere else, I'll take the journal with me.
Right.
And so it just becomes a part of that. And each of those questions are designed in a way to evoke a certain, break a pattern or to continue an existing pattern. So how you wake up is actually critically important for how the day goes.
Yeah, completely.
Critically important for how the day goes. And I've now, at this point, I've polled hundreds of people on at what point in the day do you decide, or what needs to happen for the day to be good or great, or whether it's going to be a good day or not so good day. And it's usually in the first half hour.
Right.
And it's usually like a repeatable habit. It's literally a repeatable habit. So just like people are predictable and they have predictable triggers, they have their triggers for having bad days. They have their triggers for having good days. And it's designed to do it as soon as you wake up. You open this thing and you're writing it.
Yes. And it's to trigger you, to put you in this grateful state, this positive state. It's so interesting because, and we'll get to the ending the day first, but I have become hyper conscious of my thoughts first thing in the morning.
Yeah.
And I had always heard, read something or think positively or think about plan your day before you go to bed, because it has all these subconscious positive consequences. But I never really understood it or understood the application of it until I went to bed watching something negative. It was just negative on television. I fell asleep to it. And when I woke up the next morning, I kid you not, like, I started looking at everything and complaining about it. Just little thoughts in my head, like, oh, I can't believe that's still there. Oh, I got to clean that. Oh, this is still broken. And it just was a few seconds. I was like, whoa. And so this is a fantastic way to just shut that voice up and put you in that state of gratitude. So that's fantastic. And the next one is, what would make my day today great? And why did you ask that question?
So one of the things, the reason we included gratitude is because there's incredible studies that shows if someone just writes down 3 things you're grateful for over a period of 21 days, and that was the only exercise they had to do, and it wasn't in the beginning of the day. So people went from severely depressed to moderately depressed.
Right.
You were using only that one exercise at any point in the day.
Mm-hmm.
So chances are, what would make today great to me is psychologically the most powerful question you can ask in that entire thing. The reason we put it after gratitude is because gratitude gets your ball rolling. Because if you're thinking negatively, if you're not in already a state of gratitude, the automatic response is going to be like, today's not going to be great.
Right.
And
totally.
that's never going to get done. The exercise isn't going to get done.
Right.
And the reason we shorten it is because for design quality, but the actual question is, what actions can you make to make today great?
Right.
What actions can you take to make today great? So when you're writing it down, you're going, okay, well, what can I really do today to maximize my internal well-being?
Right. Because the question isn't what should you do today or what needs to be done today or what's your to-do list for today.
Yeah.
Because those are just tasks and certainly doesn't necessarily mean you're making your day great. But this puts the power within you. What actions can you make to make your day
make day great?
Yeah.
And so it could be something simple. So I really enjoy long walks by myself.
Yeah.
I enjoy long walks by myself.
Yeah.
And a long walk can fix pretty much anything.
Yeah, you should get a dog. That's all I'm saying.
It's possible. Yeah. Dogs are responsibility. Dogs, you can't travel as much with a dog anymore.
You can make it happen. My little guy and I have figured out our routine to make it work. You gotta get a little dog if you want to travel with them. That usually helps. But yeah.
Good for you. We might chat a little bit more about that later.
Yeah.
And it's called priming your brain. So you prime your brain, just like right before anything, a presentation you want to do, you tell yourself, the presentation is going to go great, and your mind believes you.
Right.
You tell yourself in the morning, the day is going to go great. This is what I'm going to do to make sure it goes great.
Right.
1, 2, 3.
Right.
And as you choose to take those actions, you begin to believe 3 things. So A, today's going to be great. B, I can make today great. And the most fundamental belief in all of that is I'm responsible for my own well-being and happiness. Right? That's the kick.
Yeah, completely.
That's the kick.
Completely.
And it's a nice Trojan horse way of putting that in.
Yes, it's very true.
And so once you've gotten that, you've already set yourself up to figure out how your day is going to go. And then the next question is, write down your affirmations.
Yeah, which is the next question. Write down your affirmations. And just so everybody knows, whenever you do get the book, it's not just these questions. Like Alex and UJ have gone through a process of giving you detailed instructions and helpful tips on how to make this happen at the beginning of the book, so you don't have to figure all this out for yourself. They've written out a very good and actually kind of funny, humorous guide to walk you through it. So you can choose your own affirmations. I do want to skip to the nighttime part of 3 amazing things that happened today. Because what if you write down your plan for the day in the morning and you get at night, but you didn't accomplish those 3 things? You still are forcing me to be in the frame of mind of 3 amazing things that happened today. So talk me through that.
So I'll tell you a little side story that a lot of people don't know about.
Ooh, I like it.
So
Intrigue.
when I started, so I used to do 10.
Right.
In my journal, I used to do 10 every day. And so I figured, in this journal, we can have 5. And I was really adamant about 5.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, come on, everyone can do 5. Right? 5.
Right.
It's not that crazy. I'm down scoring from 10.
Right.
So it can't be terrible. Everybody told me, listen, you gotta get it down to 3. Not everyone can think of 5. You gotta get it down to 3.
Yeah.
And once I got so much feedback, so I said, you know what, they're right. I just got overwhelming feedback, and that's why we had to reduce it to 3.
Mm-hmm.
I think it worked out in the long run because it does shorten the amount of time you spend on it, and it just looks crisper, and it's easier, and it takes less time.
Mm-hmm.
But what I did was I made up with the next question, so we'll get to that in a bit. But 3 amazing things that happened today for me, and I don't know, I would love to know about your experience in this, is I look at my day that just passed by, and the simplest, smallest things
Right.
are just the most incredible moments. So I remember at the time I was with a friend, and we were heading to a meeting, and he was eating a little bit longer, so we were late, and we raced all the way to where we had to go, and there was this like tension between the estimated arrival time and like zigzagging between cars on the highway, and I hadn't raced in so long. It was great, and it was 10 minutes of the day, but it totally made it, because it had been a while since I'd been experienced like that.
Right.
Or sometimes you see a garden and you go, wow,
Right.
that's just beautiful. And there's nothing the garden did to me. There's nothing I did to the garden, but this is going to my journal tonight, and I just know it.
Right.
I'm curious, how is it for you?
Yeah, well, because of the way the question is phrased. 3 amazing things that happened today, not 3 good things that happened today. So if it's 3 good things that happened today, I probably would have written down more like, oh, I finished a blog article, or my to-dos, because that's the Western world we live in. What did you do? What did you do? What did you produce? What did you put out in the world? But when you change it to 3 amazing things that happened today, you're absolutely right. It's the unexpected little moments, and on tough days, it's like I just want to curl up in a ball and wait till the next day, and I have to think of 3 amazing things. It's usually I have a roof over my head. That is amazing. and it's a different way of taking gratitude, but acknowledging that even in the tough days, there are good things. And I live in sunny California, so a beautiful sunrise, beautiful sunset. My dog is always a good go-to for all gratitude and all amazement, for sure. It's just these little moments, or even like in a yoga practice, I was able to find a new level of being centered, or anything along those lines. Yesterday it was that I deadlifted more weight than I ever had before, so that's what's up.
That's a big deal. That's a big deal. It's not to be taken lightly.
So, but then we have the next question, which is, how could I have made the day better?
Right.
So tell us about that. Doesn't that feel like, we go from all these highs to, and how did you suck? Like, explain that.
That's a great question. We should include that in the next edition.
Yes.
Did you suck?
I want acknowledgements.
So one of the instructions that I wrote in the beginning is, this is not a beat me up contest. This is not let me flog myself for all my mistakes and my shortcomings. It is just an objective assessment of really, if I could do this again, what's one thing I do differently? So it's not 10 things, it's not 20 things, it's one thing. What's one thing I would have done differently? And the interesting thing is what it does, at least from what I've heard, is it allows you to figure out, because sometimes I have the same thing on there.
Yeah. Oh, totally.
for several days.
Yeah.
Or a week. And I've had friends tell me the same thing.
Yeah.
And what it does is just brings you awareness. Like, what's the one thing that can really change everything?
Right.
And are you doing it?
Right.
Because,
well, yeah. And it forces you to think about it rather than what we would do if we didn't have this tool is just sweep it underneath the rug.
Right? So it just brings you awareness to that one change you really need to make to get to the next level. And for different people, it's different stuff. Right? So for one of my friends, it's making sure he goes to bed earlier. Right? So and that's his pattern. And for one of my friends, it's starting his meditation routine. Now he's doing his meditation routine, which is great because if he didn't have this tool, he wouldn't do it.
Right.
So for different people, it's just different actions. But what it does is brings you awareness to what you would have normally swept under the rug. And by the way, just for psychology geeks out there, when you sweep it under the rug, it doesn't go away. It just goes into your unconscious, which basically means you become unconscious of it. And so it still affects you, but you just don't pay attention to it anymore.
Right.
Till the rug starts stinking.
Right.
And till it really needs like some help. You need to just take out the rug, you throw it out, and get a new one. So what it does, it speeds up your learning in a simple, innocent question.
Yeah. Well, and it's a perfect log for, you can tell you struggle with this thing for a number of days, number of weeks.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, that's not the thing that you write down for what you could have done differently. And so you can flip back and say, oh, hey, because I have a really tough time remembering my accomplishments. It's, I don't know if that's a female thing. I don't know if it's an Italian Catholic thing. I cannot remember what I've done well because there's always the next thing. I'm very future oriented. And so
it's
having this
thing, I can change that and then I keep going.
Yes. All right. So when I can flip back and go, oh, hey, I actually conquered that because I'm not writing that any longer. That's just such a nice part of the tool. And we haven't talked about too much today, but I just want to let people know that these aren't just simple questions. When I first heard of the 5-minute journal, I will be honest, I was just like, because I'm not a big fan of like things that are like, flashy and oh, get things done in 3 seconds. And so when I first heard it, I was just like, okay, yeah, sure. But when I read through the tutorial that you guys put together and then the questions, knowing as much as I do about psychology of happiness, I've watched ridiculous amounts of TED Talks, I listen to Stanford classes, like I know this world. The questions that you chose and the way in which you phrase them were very methodical, very well thought out, and triggers different parts of your brain. And you guys actually did condense a lot of positive psychology studies into this. And I highly recommend everybody just get your copy, get multiple copies, and try the process for, like you, Jay, said, 5 days, 21 days, and I promise it will start to mold and shift those spider webs that you might have up there. So this is a fabulous book, and you guys know I don't rave about things this often, so go get it, and I'll provide links for everything. Any other final?
From one geek to another, that actually means a lot to me, because one of the things that I was really passionate about is, if you don't read another book on happiness, if you don't read watch another TED Talk, you should be fine, because this is everything in it.
Yeah.
So thanks for the kind words. I really appreciate it.
Well, thank you.
Knowing what you know about psychology.
Yeah.
I appreciate those words.
Oh, you're more than welcome. So everybody, you will get links to the book. Jay, thank you so much for the chat, and
welcome,
hopefully
sure.
we'll do
Always
more
fun.
of these in the future.
Absolutely.
All right, have a good one. Bye-bye.
Take care.